Long as you're happy, you're always gonna grin. You get out what you put in. You get out what you put in. Never gonna lose, never gonna win. Long as you're happy, you're always gonna grin. You get out what you put in. You get out what you put in. You get out what you put in.
Oh my goodness, it's Lucy Griffiths. Hello, Lucy, how are you?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I have to confess, I'm not on top form. So I'm sort of slightly more sluggish and less bubbly and bouncy than I normally are. So apologies if you're expecting somebody super enthusiastic, which I normally am, and I'm a bit.
I've been following you for absolutely ages. No, just in case there is anyone who's watching this or listening on the podcast that doesn't know who you are, Lucy Griffiths, who are you?
Okay, there's lots of people who won't know who I am. Who am I? So I wrote a book called Make Money While You Sleep. And I talk a lot about passive income and how you can live more, work less. So that means, just finding a way through passive income, through courses and digital products and memberships to really be able to sort of create a life that works for you. And that might be, for your family, or just because you want to travel more, or you just want to slow down and you don't want to be on the corporate treadmill or whatever it may be. And, you can use your knowledge and your expertise and work with clients and brands, but do it in a way that works for you rather than feeling like you're just having to kind of charge out the house at 7 a.m. and back at 10 p.m. at night or whatever it may be. And you're just a slave to the machine.
Yeah. And you were a slave to the machine, weren't you, back in the day, because you were a journalist and traveling around the world reporting on all kinds of things. So that's not a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah. I mean, I worked, and I think I probably was burned out, although I've never used that phrase. I never kind of thought about, I think I was too in it to feel burned out. But I was working 16-hour days most days, and I was based in places like Beijing or in the Middle East. I worked a lot in Asia, so I sort of had I had about 20 years where I was a journalist, and about 15 of those I was based in different places around the world, reporting on lots of a variety of stories, but lots of really challenging, difficult working environments, working in China, or, in conflict zones, or, really, really difficult places. And I got to a point where I just was like, as much as I loved that work and it was very rewarding, and it was the kind of journalism that I loved to do. It was telling stories about people who were voiceless and really feeling like I made a difference. And I did make a difference, but I couldn't do it anymore. And it was not sustainable for having a family. I have friends who have kids and will still jump on a plane and be gone for 3 weeks. But I didn't want that for my son. I didn't want to create that kind of life.
Yeah. And you hear stories of people in that position when they're a lot older, they turn around and go, I wish I'd spent more time with my kids. No one ever says, I think I spent too much time with my kids. And that's the thing. I'm actually away at the moment, which is why I'm not in my shed. And I got a text yesterday from my daughter, something along the lines of "You're the best and good luck today," or something like that.
Oh, bless!
And it's incredible, and it's because I was there for them when they grew up. All right, I didn't chase the big jobs and all of that. I wanted to be, involved with the children, and you can't get that back, and you can't buy that. And I think it's hard in modern day life that we sort of like feel we've got to choose between the two. And what you've done is incredible, but what you're doing is even better, because you're teaching us that we can have a slice of that pie too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It is really possible to turn, package up your knowledge and your expertise and turn it into something that other people will buy from you and become a personal brand, and then sell that version of you. And it's it sounds really weird and scary in the beginning, and like, is this possible? Um, but people do buy from you, and something blows my mind. I think, oh my goodness, like, I often say, what do you do on a daily basis? And I will often say, oh, I write crap on LinkedIn, and somehow people buy from
It's
it.
not, Lucy, please don't use that term, because you come out with some real corkers. And you share an awful lot as well. I've just got a comment here from Angela Cox. She's saying hello both. Sorry, do you know Angela?
I don't, but hello.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. And this is the thing, right? People have seen what we're talking about. Like, let's go and have a look and see what these guys are talking about today. And it's, you don't know. You throw that stone in the pond, you don't know where those ripples are going to go. And it's just incredible. You talk about personal branding. Your brand is so strong. How did you get there?
I think I'm quite, as you might see my backdrop, I'm quite, I've always taken photos in my house I love pink and red. So
Really?
and so they're my brand colors. So that's always been the case. I mean, even I have photos of me in Afghanistan where I'm wearing like a pink shalwar kameez, and and completely like what I shouldn't have been wearing. I should have been wearing like green blend in kind of, and I was always very girly, and while it stood out, it always sort of disarmed people because I was quite girly. And so that was kind of in my professional career. And by being girly and not very, like, quite gentle and sort of feminine in my energy, I think people would open up and tell me things, which as a journalist is what you want.
Absolutely.
But they do it in a way where they didn't feel threatened. And so when it came to kind of branding, it was very much that I wanted those brand colors. And then, I was always about sort of bright colors, but it was very much led by, I'm going to go with reds and pinks as my colors. And it's become more, I guess I've done so many photo shoots now that it's become, more, I'm more conscious of it. But I think naturally, so all my photos are done in whatever house I'm living in. So that you might see like a different kitchen or something, but basically they're all, I know lots of people who will hire an Airbnb and do their shoots, whereas mine are always my kitchen or my.
Yeah, it makes it more real, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
have you got a Smeg fridge?
Yeah, well, not in this house, but in previous house, yes.
Yeah, that photo of you in front of that red fridge is we've got a fitted kitchen. So I can't have a yellow fridge, but wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, I mean, it was pure fluke that was the fridge. It wasn't, we moved in and that was the fridge, and it was like, oh, okay, well, let's do and the cottage actually where we were living was quite dark, but obviously the pop of red was really good. But so it's always been my homes. But I think because of my background as a TV producer, and so I'm always thinking about aesthetics, and I'm always really aware of like how, like, the framing and how it's going to look. And so I think I see things that other people don't necessarily see, because that was my job for so many years. I was having to look at that stuff and look at how does this look? Looking at the shots, like, okay, let's remove that thing, or
Are you looking at the air conditioning unit behind me for any
yeah,
change?
yeah. I mean, for example, I would be sorting you out right now, and I'd be
I
like,
know.
because that's sort of what I did for many, many years.
Yeah, I know.
And my first course was confident on camera. So I talked a lot about branding and backdrops and all of that stuff. And so, but that's always been, I'm quite almost anal about it. And when Tom, he's an old colleague of mine, comes to do photos for me, and it's like behind, I sort of declutter madly, so everything looks, and then behind is an absolutely chaotic, but the surfaces are like clean and decluttered because it just looks better. So I'm sort of, I would just say, if you're doing photos, make them you, but just make sure you declutter so that it just, it's clean lines.
Sure. Look, there's a great big window here, which is why I'm getting the light. Okay.
Excellent.
So that's why.
You're in a hotel or somewhere. That's always understandable.
Absolutely. So we saw a photo of you recently that you posted online of you doing a photo shoot with the proper backdrop, and on the floor, your little one's playing with toys, and it's a proper bomb site. And we really relate to that because we're all trying to bring up our own kids. And so, like, how on earth can Lucy look like that and she's got a kid? And you shared that photo, so now we know. So what are your top tips for juggling everything?
Oh, juggling everything. I think so. My son is a little bit older now, so he's just turned 9. So, and it gets easier as they get older. When he was younger, it was hard building a brand and doing that while he was really little. I think being vulnerable, sharing your stories, just talking about where you're at, and being open to, you don't have to be perfect. I think people think that they have to be perfect. And while you can be polished, and I'm always polished, and I always found I used to do lots and lots of Facebook ads, and like Americans really, I have quite a big American audience because I think they liked the polish that Brits maybe don't necessarily like the polish quite so much.
Right.
But I think it's really important to be vulnerable as well, to have depth. So talking about things that are challenging or difficult, and showing that actually, while it might look polished or whatever, that's not the whole picture. Actually, there's complete chaos behind as well, because there always is. And I'm a single parent, and it's a juggle. It's a juggle to, I'll be doing a coaching call, and it will get to like 3:00, and I'm thinking, I really need to wrap this up right now. And, and I just like, and, sometimes I am literally just running out the door because I'm late for pickup or something. And, so I'm lucky in the fact that I've built a business where I work from about 10:30 until 3 p.m. most days. I'm lucky that I've kind of built that way of working. I usually say 2:30 my cutoff, but sometimes it creeps over. And that really helps with just managing life. But you can do that if you're really focused with that time. And normally, I mean, I'm not top A game today at all, but normally I have a list of things I'm going to do, and I just like charge through them because I know I've only got 4 hours. Whereas when I remember when, I would work and I had much longer because I didn't have childcare responsibilities. I didn't, and I remember being in the office and just faffing around, looking on Google, and like, just spending hours deliberating over a word or something. Whereas now it's just like, okay, that will do. Right, fine, good.
Yep.
On we go, next thing. Because needs must. You just have to get it done.
Done is better than perfect, Lucy.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. And there's there is finite time. And that's the thing. Do you have any VAs or any assistants or anyone in your team, or is it just you?
Yeah. So I have So Bianca is in the Philippines, and she has worked with me since about 2017. And so she does quite a lot of she'll do my SEO, she'll do Canva graphics for me, that kind of thing. And then I have different people that I rely on. So she does a lot of stuff. She does my blog posts, she'll do,
She's your Girl Friday.
yeah. So she will do a lot. And then, and so I will create content, and then she kind of packages it up. But I write the words. It's always my words. It's always, and she'll do things with it. And then I have other people who I rely on to do other tasks. Louise and Rachel will do my admin. But so there was a point where I had so when I was still married to my husband, he was in the business a lot more. And it was kind of like I was sort of removed from the business, and then he was managing various people. And I hated it, to be honest. I felt really removed from it. I felt really removed from the business. And it was just like a layer of middle management that was completely unnecessary. And so when I split up with my husband, I restructured everything, and I just wanted to make it really easy and simple. And so I kind of got rid of that whole, I didn't like it. And so I just simplified everything. So I got rid of, we used to do these really big launches, and I just was like, I don't want to do those anymore, because it's not, it wasn't sustainable for me to do as a single parent. And so it was just too much pressure. So I just pared everything back, made it really simple. And I much prefer it. I'm much happier. And it means I work 4 hours a day, rather than feeling like I'm really like full on. And also I was doing lots of joint ventures with other businesses. So I was kind of building courses on behalf of like Psychology's Magazine or Men's Health or various other brands. And while doing these joint ventures were great, and it was amazing opportunities, and it was mad to think there's me in my spare room having a conversation with the board of like some really big organization. I was like, it was me that kind of did. My husband was much more like, he could do the corporate speak, whereas I don't really do the corporate speak. But it was also meant that I was much more kind of having to deliver things, whereas now it's just much more simplified, and I much prefer it.
Yeah, and I think you've got to try all these things to find what works for you.
Yes.
So as you're growing your business, we're all bootstrapped, and I'm reading your book at the moment. It's absolutely incredible. And it's a proper story of how you've done it and what to do, stuff like that. When do you turn around and go, right, I need to employ someone, or I need a VA, or I need to outsource some of this stuff? What's the point? Where is that?
Yeah, I think there's so much. So I'm going to say opposite to what most people say. So lots of people, and I remember when I first started out, they were like, you've got to outsource, you need to outsource as soon as possible. I actually disagree. I think learn the systems, do as much as you can. There will be things that you can't do. So get somebody to do a specific task with an end goal of, I need you to do X to Y, and it's a finished task. I first hired Bianca, it's a bit random, where I hired her because somebody said she's amazing, which she is. And she'd been made redundant. She was a bit desperate for money. And so I hired her, but I had no clue what to do with her. And it probably took me about 6 months to kind of figure out, okay, this is how we work together. And I basically bought her loads of courses so she could learn the things that I wanted her to do. And so that's how I tend to work. If I want to do something, I'll buy her a course on Pinterest or whatever it may be. And so she becomes an expert in that area. And I have tried where I go and find an expert in this topic, and sometimes it works, but sometimes it's like, actually, I'm much better just to get Bianca doing this thing. And so I would say in the beginning, try and do as much as, like, keep it as lean as possible. Keep it that you are, you don't need to have, you don't need to have a big team. I mean, one of my mentors, Vishen from Mind Valley, will say, so I'm in a mastermind with him, and he will say, with the use of AI now, you can build $1 billion business with 1 or 2 employees.
Wow.
And that's, and that's where we're at. You don't need to hire people in that same way.
Yeah. I need to have a chat with this guy. That's incredible. That's incredible. So you help people with courses, and I'm listening to your book, and you're saying about a cheese company and all kinds of different companies. What is the weirdest one? Because the thing is, right, we're all trying to do this 9 to 5 that we hate, and we see what you're doing, like, what can I do? I'm no good at this, I'm no good at that. But we've all got a passion. So what are some of the weird things that people are making money out of that you never thought they would, but they've got a passion for it and they've driven it into a business?
Yeah, I mean, probably one of the strangest was because my son was obsessed with tractors. And so I think I attracted somebody who was basically taught people, had a membership about building model tractors.
Wow.
And, so that was the membership. It was like, building model tractors, and so it was kind of, it was a hobby maker's kind of thing.
Sure.
But that was probably one of the ones where I was like, whoa, this is, it, and it's amazing what it can do. I mean, I have somebody at the moment who it's probably a bit racy for LinkedIn. It's all, it's the whole gambit of things that, that people make money from.
Yeah.
That, and the person who's doing that, she's a consultant, she does that, but she knows that actually, if she does this thing, she is going to, it's going to be huge, and she will never have to work again in the same way. And that's the beauty of when you take an idea and you can monetize it.
Sure. You've only got to go and look in the local newsagents and look at all the different magazines that they've got. People buy a magazine on this? That's weird. And then there's 3 different magazines on this topic. I'm a big car buff, so you think of what car and stuff like that. But then when you look, there's a classic car this, and there's a specific, Triumphs or something. And it's like, wow, that's amazing. And like you say, if they're making magazines, people are making money out of that. Yeah. So therefore there's going to be a course. So whatever you're thinking about doing, just give it a go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Wow, brilliant. Lucy, I could talk to you forever. All right. I know that you're not feeling well. Thank you so much for getting out of your deathbed. You know that it's not as bad as man flu. Okay. It's been absolutely delightful to have you on. Thank you so much. I'd love you to come back one day when you're feeling better. It's an open invitation, but thank you so much for coming on today.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's been absolutely delightful. Thanks ever so much indeed. Thank you to Angela for saying hello. If you listen to this on the podcast, in the show notes, you can get hold of Lucy and go and read her book. It is brilliant. Thanks, everybody. Cheerio.
You get out what you put in. Never gonna lose, never gonna win.